Actually on site at the foothills of the Mount Dandenong Ranges, and this is where we spoke earlier this year to long-distance runner Richard Bowles. He was about to head across to compete in the Mount Everest Marathon, one of the most challenging runs you would say in the world. He did so, he's back, and he's of course back training. Runners don't stop, they just keep running, so we thought we'd catch up with Richard to talk about what was a lifetime experience. Richard, great to catch up with you again. Lots of things to talk to you about, but just briefly, you went across, you competed, and you ran the race.
Absolutely, Andrew, and it was fantastic and an experience of a lifetime. So yeah, as you say, lots to talk about. Sometimes it's hard to know where to start.
Well, the one thing that I know that you stressed to us in the interview was that no matter how much training you'd prepared for, how much planning, all of the costs, all of the time off your business and so on, you did leave us with one thing that we were worried about, and that was you told us that no matter how prepared you are, on the night or the day of the race, they actually can say you're not able to run due to blood count or conditioning or so on. Explain to us that very, very tense moment when they said you're okay to run.
Well, it's actually fun, Andrew, because what I've not told you so far is that I was nearly unable to run due to some altitude sickness. Now, I was pretty sick all the way because it was a 2-week trek to the start line, so I was pretty sick for that whole 2 weeks. Each evening I had some terrible headaches and some dizziness. We did have some health checks by doctors who kept informing me that it was quite normal to sort of experience this sort of feelings, so I kept on trooping to the top. The last camp before base camp, where the race started, I woke up that morning pretty sick. So the doctors asked me to stay behind. Did actually say that the race may not go ahead for myself, but the next morning, fortunately, I did bounce back. So and obviously I did the race and completed it.
I guess there are lots of people there that you didn't know, but were you aware and did you see any people that were told, sorry, you can't compete? I guess if they've got a very bad case of altitude sickness, they're probably not in the mood to run anyway. But did you see people that have travelled a long way, well, I guess everyone travelled a long way to get to Mount Everest, that have been told, sorry, you can't compete?
No one was actually told, no, sorry, you can't compete, but 2 people did drop out just due to thinking, oh, I can't do this. And there's one gentleman I remember from Brazil, the only Brazilian competitor, and I think the only Brazilian competitor over the last 10-year race history, but he was pretty sick. He was probably sick for a week, didn't eat, and but he managed to still complete the race, which was an amazing achievement for him. But I think he lost something like 15 kilos or something crazy like that.
Now, again, for those that didn't hear the interview with you a number of months ago now, just explain to people, obviously they know of Mount Everest when people are wearing hiking boots and snow gear and, altitudes, we're having oxygen masks and so on, but obviously that's not where you're running. Just explain to our listeners where you ran and how you fared.
So the race itself starts at Everest Base Camp, which is 5,365 metres above sea level, and it ends in a Sherpa town called Nanchi Bazaar, which is about 4,500 metres or thereabouts, I believe. It sort of runs through the foothills and through valleys and through the Sherpa villages along the way. It's not a marked course. It's obviously completely off-road. And how did I fare? Pretty well, I think. I mean, I think the craziest thing was that because you don't have a route to follow as such, on the trek up, you actually walk over the marathon course. So people were very sort of studying the area and trying to get their head around which way we'll be actually coming back down from the mountain.
So basically it's all downhill, the race itself, or is that a wrong way to simplify it when you say you go up, you come down?
Well, it's funny. It actually goes down in altitude, but there's some huge climbs. So, most people say that, Andrew. They say, because it starts at 5,000 and finishes at 4,000 metres or thereabouts, that it's a downhill race. Yes, it is, but there's some huge climbs.
We're chatting to runner Richard Bowles earlier this year. He competed in the Mount Everest Marathon. Wow, what an amazing place to be, even if you weren't going there to compete as a runner. Explain to us physically how you felt at times. Obviously, as we said, no matter how much preparation you'd done, you're expecting it to be gut-wrenching and perhaps as tough as you've ever experienced. Can you relate to us how you did feel? Way
out of breath. And this sort of hit me pretty pretty soon, and when we actually arrived to start the 2-week trek to the start line, I thought this is going to be tough. There's just no oxygen here at all. So at the race start, I think most people were quite concerned about that. And look, it just meant that you had to go a lot slower than you normally would in any race. Yeah, it was tough.
Does your body dictate in telling you that? I mean, obviously we've heard of people pushing through the pain barrier, pushing on to find that next part of their physical test that they can push their body as they get towards the end of a marathon. But in this case, if you can't take in oxygen, no matter how much you want to push yourself, I guess your body will tell you have to stop or walk.
Absolutely, and there was times where you have to walk. I mean, just because of the sheer terrain or some of the really severe climbs, you cannot run that. Though I say you can't not run it, but the local guys were still running all that.
Who won the race, Richard?
I can't pronounce his name. I can't remember the guy, but he actually won the race last year as well. He did it in 3:41:20 this year, and last year he did it in 3:40.
What nationality is, and what nationalities did you find were represented in people that ran there?
Well, obviously the Nepalese. They come in the top 50, if you like. After that, the first foreigner this year was a guy from Hungary. He was a mountain guide. He spent a lot of time over there, sort of preparing for the race, probably over the last 3 months. And second place foreigner was a guy from Switzerland that does a lot of mountain running as well. And then obviously third place foreigner was myself.
We're chatting to Richard Bowles, competed in the Mount Everest Marathon. Away from the run itself, just the experience of going to a place in the world which is one of the wonders of the world, and a place that we'll, in most cases, never ever see ourselves. Again, it might be a naive question, but can you actually see anywhere near the summit from any point when you were making your way to base camp? Does it look like mountain ranges, or could you actually see the top of the world at times?
Well, you're always on top of the world. I mean, it's high, over 5,000 metres. You can pretty much see Everest from the start if it's a clear day, just the very tip of it. But it's pretty amazing. If you all the way around you, it's just 6,000 metre peaks. It's crazy. Snow-capped mountain ranges.
And were there people, I'm not sure if people climb Everest in terms of the summit all year round, or whether it was not when you were there. Were there people there at base camp that were not there to run back like you were for a running marathon and might be a bit bemused at what you were doing, but were people there progressing to go higher as climbing?
It was actually a climbing season when I was there, the back end of climbing season. So the most exciting thing is that we'd met a lot of summiteers when we were hiking on the way up there. Were just saying, they just looked so excited and said it was the best thing ever. And then at base camp itself, there was a number of other tents and expeditions there. So there were people still climbing up to the top. What
was the most strongest memory you'll bring back, or strongest memories, plural, that you'll bring back, whether it was from running or just what you saw?
Well, the big sickness part played that played a big part in my memory, because it's probably the first time in my life I went to sleep that night on my own. Everybody else had trekked up to the start line, and obviously I was thinking about possibly not actually doing the race, which would have been obviously heartbreaking. But probably for the first time in my life, I actually was scared to go to sleep, thinking I might not even wake up in the morning. That's how sick I was. Really,
goodness me. Any female runners at all, or not?
Yes, with the Nepalese, I can't remember the exact numbers now, but in the foreigners category, there's probably half a dozen ladies from all over the globe, and another lady from Australia.
Any of the Nepalese give you the impression for them it's just like walking down Burke Street in Melbourne in terms of not bothered by altitude at all? They could, sing a song while you're gasping for breath because they're so used to the altitude. Is it almost more than a home ground advantage? And
absolutely, and there's a funny story there, because I was climbing up this huge hill, and I had to sort of stop and walk for a while because I was so out of breath. And this Nepalese guy actually came up beside me and lit up a cigarette, and he was actually in the race.
You're next. You'll tell me they're running in bare feet.
Almost, but I mean the ladies are pretty wild. They run in traditional clothing, so that's quite an interesting sight.
And when you came back, did you feel as though it had any effect on your body? I mean, we hear of the football teams like the Collingwoods of this world that go across to Arizona and America for altitude training. I mean, this is taking altitude training to another level. We're talking about running at base camp, Mount Everest, highest point in the world, goodness gracious me. So when you came back, did you find yourself a stronger and faster runner anaerobically, or did you find it had a physical effect on you for a while in terms of what it knocked out of you?
Well, both. I mean, I had a bit of a break, probably a good 4-week break after I got back from the race, and just to recover, I was pretty sort of sore in the legs, and I think just the trip alone takes a lot out of you. Since then, I have become a stronger runner, and I see a lot of difference in my long run times. Not so much my shorter distance stuff and my speed work, but my longer runs are probably 20 seconds quicker than they used to be per K, which is huge.
So you think that's all down to the short period of time you spent in the Everest area?
Well, I'm not necessarily from the altitude itself. Maybe it's more of a mental thing, knowing that you've been up there and you've done something so extreme that you come back here and running the roads or up here in the Dandenong Ranges becomes sort of almost a piece of cake.
So, Richard, now that you've done it, is it something that you tick off the cross list, or is it something you'd like to go back one day and do again?
Well, I've been asked this question a few different times. The answer is no. There's other races I want to do around the globe and even in Australia. But saying that, I was so sick, and the doctors sort of couldn't believe that I still did the race, even though I was so sick the day before. And obviously setting that new Australian record of 6 hours and 7 minutes. I think I can actually probably shave some more off that, which makes me think, do I go back and give it another red hot crack?
Do you have respect for the race now, or how would you argue with people that might say it's a bit foolhardy and a bit stupid? I mean, we obviously know you're an extremely fit person, but here you are testing your body limits, and in some cases, some people might be testing their body limits to the point where, let's hope the doctor knows what he's doing. Is it foolhardy to a point?
Look, there's no doubt it's insane. I mean, it's just a stupid thing, but I mean, I was told before I went there that it would be a trail runner's paradise, and that's true. I mean, it's just a beautiful place to run. Just the culture, the terrain, the scenery. It's just a great place to run, and and even if I did go back and I didn't do the race, I'd definitely do some running there through other areas.
I'm just wondering, for cost and closeness, I know it's not Mount Everest, but somewhere like New Zealand must be akin to perhaps attracting people to do a bit of trail running.
Absolutely, and there's a heap of races there as well. I just sometimes wonder if I'm going to do something sort of big and crazy like I've just done, I need to sort of do it really far away.
So just finally, you mentioned there are other races across the world. Are there other novel races that you'd like to think of doing? I mean, we spoke to Pat Farmer. He's about to run next year from the North to the South Pole. That's almost taking to the extreme that you could not imagine. So everyone's always trying to, well, perhaps that's the wrong word because Pat's also doing it for charity, but the way people are seeking out more challenging things to do. You mentioned other runs you'd like to do. If you just run around the base of Mount Everest, what are these challenging runs that you'd like to knock off on your calendar?
Well, just in Australia alone, I do like the Victorian Alpine country. So there's the Bogan to Hotham race, which is coming up at the end of January, which I'll go and do this year, which is 64k. And that's just in Australia alone. That's something I really fancy doing. Global stuff, I'll probably look more at the multi-day events now, so sort of your 5 and 6 day ultramarathons. I suppose the MDS is another one over in Morocco there that I've sort of been toying with the idea of doing, maybe not next year or the year after, probably the year after that, get some serious training in. And look, there's new stuff that crops up all the time. There's actually one that's appealing to me, which is running from Darwin to the Red Centre over 6 days. So I'm sort of trying to research that at the moment. But, again, it's a lot of money, and I've got to find time to fit all this sort of stuff in.
Well, better you than us, but keep running, as they say. Richard Bowles, congratulations. We're glad we're chatting to you again because, as I said, not many people we interview that we think, gee, I hope he gets back from there. Usually in sport, it can be challenging but not dangerous, but to go to Mount Everest, as you say, playing around with the altitude, your body, the oxygen, and then to run, compete, and to finish the leading Australian in that race. Congratulations. Well done. Very interesting and stuff, and I'm sure we'll speak again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Richard Bowles, we're chatting to him at the foot of the Mount Dandenongs. He's out there training soon, but he was there recently at the Mount Everest Marathon around base camp at high altitude, one of the most challenging runs anywhere on this planet, and what an experience.